part of me and others also feel like the demand. I mean, we've never seen demand like this. This is unprecedented. I mean, it's so hyped up that I think we're gonna possibly blow past that point, and we're still gonna be able to run. What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 1 of the NFT Tactics podcast, powered by GFNF. My name is Adam. I'm one of the admins over at GFNF, and I'm here with my friend Aidan.
Hey, everybody. Aidan, also known as AD1097 on Discord. Excited to be here. So I'd say that myself and Adam are probably the two main GFNF admins responsible for most of the things happening within the NFT category at GFNF. I primarily focus on Ethereum plays, and Adam is more focused on Solana.
Yeah, and we definitely have a team that works with us pretty in-depth as well, but totally. Just in terms of the administration team, I've stayed with it. We're definitely the two, I guess, in charge of that, you could say?
Yeah, it's definitely been a fully collaborative effort from everyone on our team. Building out the category has been super exciting and fun. We've got some good providers. We've got some really great staff and collaborators, and we've been able to build something that I think we're all really proud of. So, grateful to be able to provide information and learn from those around us as well. So in terms of this show, we just wanted to set some expectations at the top, just so everyone understands, what we're hoping to accomplish with NFT Tactics. So in terms of frequency of uploads, we're looking at about once a week, covering all things in the NFT space in terms of news. We'll also be looking at trending topics and hopefully providing some alpha for you guys on our daily show on YouTube, which you guys can catch every day, Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time on our YouTube channel, GFNF. We typically cover more topical items, so anything that's happened within the last 24 hours, breaking news, and then also things beyond just NFTs and the cryptocurrency markets. So we'll look at like retail products, sneakers, cards, anything related to resale, because, at GFNF, we are all things resale. But this podcast is primarily focused on honing in on the NFT sector. So we're hoping to provide a lot of value there and hopefully being able to take a deeper look at some of the projects that we might surface on the daily show. And I know Adam really wants to do that with a lot of the Solana stuff that he's been looking at.
It's crazy for the amount of, I guess, lower returns you get from a Solana project. I feel like they take so much more effort to fully research sometimes.
Totally. Yeah, I think we talked about this before, but I just think the Solana investor is so much more discerning than the Ethereum one because they've seen, everything from staking to tokenomics and, promises of video games and comic books. And you just have to be so much, have your eyes wide open in Solana more so than Ethereum.
For sure. Yeah, it moves, I feel like, so much faster too.
Yeah, and I feel like our experience in NFTs has really moved quickly this year. So this is probably a good time to talk about how we both got into NFTs. Do you wanna start?
Yeah, so I definitely started out with ETH too. I think Solana is it's been around, but I definitely would say it recently boomed. The first thing we ever minted, and I think this is true for you too, was the Koala Intelligence Agency back in September or October or so.
I want to say it was that time. Yeah, it may have even been like late in the summer, maybe August. But yeah, Koala Intelligence Agency was our first play. We found that project just looking on Twitter, I believe, and we were able to mint it. That was before mints were ultra competitive and basically only utilized whitelist or various other forms of gated access. So myself and the rest of, I think our entire team, maybe with the exception of a few people, actually minted those, and that was our first experience in Ethereum. And for those that were around the NFT space, particularly ETH, at the time, Koala Intelligence Agency went on to become one of the most talked about projects within a few weeks. That excitement and hype quickly tapered back down, but at its peak, I believe we had people like Gary Vee and Logan Paul buying, the most rare Koala Intelligence Agency NFTs, which was absolutely unbelievable for us to have found this project kind of before everyone else. I think we all held onto it for too long or ended up selling it too early. I don't know if anyone...
I sold way too early.
Yeah, I sold way too late. So, and I think there's a few guys I know. We talked to Matt ML, who still actually has his. So maybe that'll go back up one day. But yeah, that was our first kind of experience in the hype cycle of NFTs, and that was before before everything kind of really boomed. I think that was a little bit after Bored Ape Yacht Club. But that Bored Ape Yacht Club back in August or September of 2021. Not 2020. 2021 was not what it is today. So yeah, that was how I got started as well. Had some good mentorship along the way. Some help from one of the owners of GFNF, Vince, who's been instrumental in creating our NFT category and helping helping all of us kind of get onboarded into Ethereum because he's been invested in it for quite some time. But yeah, so fast forward to now. Right? Like I would say we both have a good bit of experience in the space, whether it be from, making successful plays, or losing money. But I know we both currently have some relatively substantial investments in both ETH and Solana. So it's probably good for us to disclose those at the top of the show in our kind of pilot episode, just so, the listeners at home understand maybe where our implicit biases might lie or what we're financially invested in.
For sure.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, I could start just because my bag is certainly not packed as thick as yours. You're definitely more invested than I am currently compared ETH to Sol. But my number one project that I'm in right now is Sol Gods / The Bridged. That was one of the first big ones I ever bought. I think I got mine at like 6 Sol back in maybe February of this year.
Yeah, it was recent.
And they went as high as 60 Sol, and had a successful Gen 2 launch not too long ago that I've got about 3 NFTs from there.
Love it.
Another one I'm in is Tombstone. It's a classic community NFT project. Well known in the space for sure. I'm also in Yaku Corp, the recent rocket OG Atadians, Shax Astrals, and as of tomorrow, I will be in the Trip and Ape Tribe.
Ooh. Yeah, Trippin' Apes, that's a big topic on this week's kind of run of show, so we'll save that one for a little bit later. But yeah, so you've definitely got you've got some serious Sol investments, right? Like if you had to say how much Solana do you think you've got in those bags?
Probably close to like 100-ish, maybe.
There you go.
I mean, that doesn't account for all the random stuff I buy, because I'll tell you, I love a good degen play.
Don't check the hidden section of my OpenSea, and I won't check yours.
You don't even want to look at my non-hidden section of my OpenSea. There's a reason I only buy Solana NFTs. Yeah. So
I've obviously dove a little bit deeper into the Ethereum side of things, but I do have 2 OK Bears that I picked up during the pump of, what was it, last week? Maybe 2 weeks ago now. But the influencer-led pump for FaZe Banks and other folks on Twitter, picked up 2 of those. But in terms of Ethereum, I've got some ones that I think are pretty significant. So I've got a Moonbird, I've got a Coda, and I've got an Other Deed with an artifact on it. That was a recent pickup. I'll talk about that a little bit more later in the show. I've also just got a base Other Deed, and I've got an Art of Seasons that I just picked up. Again, we'll talk about that a little bit later. And the biggest play I had so far was my Azuki investments. Those unfortunately came to an end after the Zagabond news, and we're starting this podcast up a little bit after that. That's kind of all blown over now, but at the time it felt like everything was kind of crashing down when that was happening, and I ended up getting out of my full investment there. So I'm pretty liquid right now, ready to make some bigger plays if the market looks like it's going in that direction. And then, like I said, Solana-wise, I've got the OK Bears, and super stoked for that project. Might be picking up another soon if they continue to kind of decline, but we'll see. So now that we've got that out of the way, we can do our market weekly rundown. And this is going to be a segment of the show where we basically take a look at the blue chip NFTs, some of the indicators that we like to look at when we're checking for kind of the health of the market, including the price of cryptocurrency, the ones that we trade in, right? So we'll look at Ethereum and Solana. and then we'll take a look at some of the upcoming mints and events that we've got going on this week. So, Adam, how are things looking in Solana this week?
Well, I mean, with Trippin' Apes being tomorrow, people are selling a lot of pretty good stuff just to really get that liquidity up in hopes to make a play. So, and I've been telling members of our group this for a few days now. I'm looking for fire sales, basically, I like to call them.
Totally. Kind of trying to zig when other people are zagging, right? Looking at what people are.
Exactly. And we saw it with bears when people were trying to throw whatever SOL they could at those. I mean, stuff outside of that, people could get, like for Blacksmith Labs, for example. That's a really popular one. We were looking at that. At that time, it was around 25. And I put a whole list out for people to read through in our potential flips channel. And that was probably I think it was like the third one on the list or something, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, a couple days ago it hit 100. So, like you said, if you zig another zag, man, you find some good stuff that no one's really thinking about, and then 2-3 weeks later, everyone starts thinking about it because that project is doing something, and it really presents a good opportunity, just as like an alternative investment, I guess you could call it. So I do have Apes whitelist, but that's kind of where I'm at this week. I'm looking for other plays. I think that's where the more sustainable investment is right now.
That's where the value can be. Yeah. It's interesting that you say that, right? Because, we don't get many big minting events or, expected run-ups in either space, I would say, that everyone is kind of on the edge of their seat, kind of understanding that these are going to mint out very quickly and they're going to be an instant, 2 to 4 to 5x, right? Like everyone kind of expects that with this Trippin' Apes project. So you have to think that there's value to be had in other places.
For sure. Yeah. I'm looking in particular at Cats on Crack. I know I was telling you a bit about them before we started recording.
Mm-hmm.
There's only so many projects that, and I feel like the Cats started it. There can only be so many projects that can just, their main utility be a community and a profile picture.
Yeah.
But, and we're seeing that project after project now, but I feel like with Cats, when the popular meta was staking and tokenomics and this and that, Cats came in and were like, hey, here's a picture of a cat. You can mutate it one day.
Yeah.
And they just had the most insane community. I think I forget the name of the site, but there's a social analytic tool where you can look at things like how many people on Twitter are using your NFT project's profile picture.
Right. I've seen this.
How many people are tweeting about it? Just all different kind of social analytics to look at. And Cats on Crack was number 1 in Solana for a time, and I think like number 3 or 4 of all NFTs.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was really like the catalyst for this new meta that we're in right now.
Totally.
So.
Yeah, the branding meta. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say they have a really good team behind them. Their owner Peblo has like this sort of mysterious reputation, and he delivers on pretty much all that he promises, if not more.
Sounds like a Zagabond character. I don't know about mysterious reputations. That didn't end well for me last time. Well, I'm just going to hope that it goes better this time. That's all you can do with these anonymous figures, right? Just kind of cross your fingers.
Yep. So that's where I'm looking to kind of circulate my 8 profits into personally. Yeah. There's plenty of other good options though, but that's what I'm looking at.
Would you say that the Solana space is kind of moving more towards that brand meta with OK Bears leading the way, or has it not really made that transition just yet?
Oh, it's certainly made that transition. In fact, I think it's happening so much that people are now getting tired of it.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good to know. Yeah, because I mean, obviously, the OK Bears investment was on my behalf, and I think others, was made with the assumption or with the idea that things were kind of changing over there in the Solana space. Because typically, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, of course. Things were all focused on tokens and future roadmaps, but with these more brand-centric plays, they can deliver less, promise less, and basically crush those goals, right? Like they can exceed low expectations that they set, as funny as that sounds. and by doing so, right, like deliver more quote unquote utility to holders, right? And you mentioned like having a community isn't really utility, but in my opinion, having airdrops isn't really utility either. To me, utility has always been like, oh, you hold this, so you get to do this, you get to mint this, you get to have this. It's less so like you get a free, 2 ETH or 3 ETH or 3 SOL or whatever, right. That's always been my idea of utility. But I think that definition is really fluid. It's kind of a buzzword, especially in the NFT space. So
definitely. Yeah, I don't think that community as a utility is going to disappear in something like Kets or Bears. Yeah. I think that I don't want to call Bears the original, but they're the strongest, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think they're going anywhere. I think if they continue to do as they are, I think they'll be fine. And I definitely think that they have one coming that we don't know about for sure. There's no way they don't.
Yeah.
That'd be insane.
I think the wristbands, obviously, like I'll get a wristband. That'll be a cool utility. But I think there will be more. There will be more in the future. And I don't mean, we're not trying to sound cynical or like we're only in this for the profit. But, at the end of the day, these are significant investments that we're making. So to say that community is the only utility, right? Like community is a nice to have. I would even argue it's a need to have. But there has to be something a little bit more substantial than that. If, given the amount of money that if we treat all NFT projects, in my head, I kind of treat them like startups, right? Like the money that you give them from the mint and the royalties are kind of used as like a treasury to develop future iterations and future projects and products within the business. So the expectation is that they'll be able to deliver on those things. And if not, then it wasn't a good investment. That's how I kind of view things. Yeah.
Yeah. That's definitely not wrong by any means. And, if I'm giving someone my money, I want to see them, deliver and build on whatever it is that they're doing. Totally. Just as like a natural response, I guess.
Yeah. Just you want them to be good stewards of the investments that they've been given. And I think I think the market has been holding NFT projects to a higher standard, which I think is good. As long as that standard doesn't get completely skewed by, larger projects that can kind of just do whatever, right? Like a Yuga Labs they don't really need, right? Like they can operate at a completely different level than probably even OK Bears can. So, yeah. Okay. So in terms of the ETH NFT market, things are just kind of moving sideways. There's been no real notable events or new mints taking place. We had the Chimpers, which was a play that I tried to make, didn't work out quite as well as I would have hoped. I did manage to make a little bit of Ethereum off of it, like 0.23, so nothing crazy. But that's probably the most recent notable event. But as if we look at the cryptocurrency prices, right, like Ethereum and Bitcoin are just kind of ranging sideways. They obviously had a downtrend when Luna and the UST situation was unraveling. Again, started this podcast a little bit too late to really go deep into detail on those two. But the kind of correction that came for all of the cryptocurrency market definitely affected the two leaders, Bitcoin and Ethereum, in a negative way. But they basically just held between 29K and 31K for Bitcoin and about 1,800 and 2,000 for Ethereum. So in my humble opinion, I think we're going lower, and lower and then sideways would mean, or in the past has meant, higher volume on the Ethereum network for NFTs. So looking for something like that, the one observation I have been making the past 2 weeks, maybe even 3 weeks, has been as Ethereum has just kind of traded sideways, NFT volume hasn't picked up in ways that it historically has before. And I think that's just general uncertainty about if it's going lower. People aren't willing to make buys, especially for some of the more expensive projects at like 15 to maybe 25 ETH, to be buying, something at that price when ETH is 2,000 versus when ETH is 1,500. It does kind of make a difference. So I think people are just kind of waiting to see how that shakes out. But the Solana price action, Adam, is there anything you want to talk about there?
Yeah, with the downfall of, and I guess that's when I say downfall, it sounds really intense.
It's a little dramatic.
with the decline in price of Solana, of Ethereum and Bitcoin. We've seen Solana hit, I think, a low of didn't it hit like 42 a couple weeks ago.
It was low 40s. Yeah, it was scary hours for Solana.
Yeah, right now we're at just about 50. Back down from a local high a few weeks ago of somewhere between 80 and 100. So I mean, it all kind of moves the same direction. It's all closely related.
Yeah.
And I think on top of everything you said, I think the just macroeconomic conditions we're in right now, just state of the country and world, kind of factor into that as well.
You said today that what did you text me? You said you were bearish or worried about. You said this is the first time you're actually kind of worried about the macro, which is interesting because I'm always the big macro guy. Like, oh, everything's uncertain. But you said it today, so anything you want to share there? What was the revelation?
I don't know. It just feels like everything is down in price across like all categories.
Yeah,
and I never really paid much attention to it until now. And my gas price is going up. I filled my car up yesterday. Maybe that's why.
That would do it. Yeah. Yeah. The prices of things we own are going down, and the prices of things we need is going up. So, not a great combination. Okay, and then in terms of NFT space news, is there anything we want to cover before we kind of get on to the winners and the losers of this week?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a few mints I wanted to talk about. Obviously, one being the Trippin' Ape Tribe.
Totally.
So we did talk about it a bit already, how to look elsewhere in the market while everyone's attention is on those. But what we didn't talk about is, I guess, our expectations of the actual mint itself and the NFT itself. It's really, I'm on Twitter all the time looking at what people think is going to happen. I see people who are super skeptical and think that it's just going to open really high and then dump from there, which, don't get me wrong, is 100% possible. We saw it with Community a few weeks back. That wasn't quite nearly as hyped as this, but it was up there. Everyone was ready for it. That was the first big one after OK Bears. So everyone was like, oh, I'm not missing this one. I can't. And that's kind of the sentiment we have here with the Trippin' Apes. But I see some people who are ready to drop hundreds of SOL, and I see some people who don't want to spend more than 20. So it's so hard for me to really know what to do. Because I remember I have a whitelist, luckily.
Sure.
So obviously no brainer to mint. It's a 380.25 mint price if you have whitelist, and then if somehow it makes it to the public and somehow you manage to mint one, it's 4 SOL, which is definitely high. But honestly, these guys could have minted it like something absurd, like 10 SOL, and people would still bought them.
That's only $200, right? That's not really.
It's not stopping anyone.
Not so bad. What about the whales? Are the whales, because typically an indicator for me when I'm looking at a project that's especially upcoming is like, are the whales kind of packing their bags and selling off other stuff to get ready to buy this in the aftermarket, or have you not seen that yet?
The few I follow, I don't know that they need to sell stuff. Remember, SOL's not too expensive, right? Yeah. So I think that dynamic is a bit different from ETH to Solana. So I don't think that they necessarily need to sell off stuff.
Okay.
But I mean, and this goes back to looking for things on sale, right? People like OK Bears were $260 at one point last week. They're now almost $180. So there's definitely some good indicators that stuff is going down and being sold off for this tomorrow. The influencers I follow in particular, I don't think they're selling much, but I know for a fact that they're looking to buy. I mean, and these are people who have thousands of SOL at their beck and call.
Sure.
So they don't necessarily need to sell.
Yeah, but that's not a bad indicator.
But yeah.
Okay.
But it's a mix of things. I mean, it's all over the place. So the way I'm really approaching this, I'm just ready for whichever situation. I do plan on minting like rank number 4 or so. So I'm going to have a rare. I'm going to speak that into existence so it happens.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, that would be pretty epic.
Week. We'll see.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can get them.
I don't know. It's going to be a big game time decision for me right now based on, I'd say I see more people calling this a flip rather than a hold.
Yeah.
Because if you look at like the roadmap and just foundation of the project, all they really have, and I don't mean to knock it because it's still really impressive, all they really are a profile picture / community. There's no, they say, and I quote, I think it's, there's no roadmap where we're going.
God.
Which
makes me so bearish.
Love it. Yeah, don't love it. I don't think I'm going to be owning this NFT for too long.
Yeah.
And I definitely think that if you're going for it on secondary and don't have whitelists, you got to be careful because you can get burned pretty bad.
Yeah.
Pretty bad.
In terms of just trading best practices, right? Like, and we can talk about this more when we're working on projects that like are yet to reveal and stuff. But like, if you have the opportunity to take a 3 to 5x on just a mint, like, I feel like you have to do that. And then, you know, if you really love the project, and it seems like everyone else does too, you can always buy back in. But there's inevitably going to be a decline in buying pressure that will inevitably correct the floor to a more reasonable level of support. And if you identify that level, you can just buy in there and then be happy with, you know, that decision, having pocketed or being able to use that those funds that you were able to capture from just the profit. And that's something that I'm trying to get better at too, is like recognizing, you know, when buying patterns change and when the investment thesis proves wrong, being able to quickly get out of things and kind of just detach the emotion to this. Because at the end of the day, right, we're here to make money. We don't want to see our investments go to zero. But, you know, kind of getting a better understanding of market psychology, patterns in buying, what days are good to buy, what days are good to sell, all these kinds of things. I think that's all just comes down to experience and time in the market. So it's good to hear, you know, that you're thinking in the critical way and not getting too married to the idea of like a moonshot on this. Keeping yourself grounded in this space, I think, is definitely important.
Yeah, I mean, 9 times out of 10, or maybe even 9.5 times out of 10, that is the way you should think about this. But
yeah,
I don't know. I think these are going to come out swinging and just go crazy, and it's going to be impossible to know which direction it's going. And to your point of identifying those levels and buying back in, I think it works a little bit differently in Solana to ETH. I think it almost happens like, let's say that there's a 3-day analytics period. If you look at an ETH NFT, right? Mm-hmm. I think that happens in 10 minutes on a Solana project. Yeah, it swings so viciously and violently so quickly that I'd like to think I've gotten pretty good at identifying it, just looking at the volume of sales and how many. And you could literally just go on. I like to use Coral Cube. If you don't know Coral Cube, it's pretty much just an alternative to Magic Eden, much smoother to buy on. They aggregate basically Magic Eden, OpenSea, and whatever other platforms that NFTs are listed on. But if you look at their volume or the activity page on Magic Eden, you can see how many, and it works the same on OpenSea. You can see how many things were bought in a 1 minute period or two minutes ago, whatever it looks like. And that's kind of what I use to gauge. Like if I see a full page of less than 1 minute ago, that makes me much more confident that we're still riding that wave up. Mm-hmm. But once you start to see the mixture of 1 minute, 2 minute, that's my identifier of, okay, this is slowing down a bit. It might pick back up, but how can I get ahead of this? Do I list now? Do I watch for another minute or two? It's so tough, and it's never the same for every project.
And it could be a fake out too, right? Like you could see a lot of listings fly in and then a ton of volume out of nowhere. It's really difficult, but you kind of just have to. You kind of got to trust your gut here. And if your gut's wrong, right, and you can still make a little profit, you got to not really look back and beat yourself up. That's really the killer.
I think the most important thing to learn from any investment, I guess, even so, is you can never go broke taking profits.
There you go. Cool.
So well, okay. Try not to look back too far.
Yeah, don't try not to check your activity and see what stuff's going for now.
Don't beat yourself up. I've done it. It's not fun.
Cool. So anything else for the Solana space before we move on?
Yeah, we've got one other big one this week. They actually just announced their mint date today. It is King of the Streets, which is minting on the 27th. And I think that as a project, they're kind of the same. Another profile picture, no roadmap. They even say they have no roadmap.
Oh my god!
What
is with these no roadmap projects? Don't people know?
There's like 12 of them. There's like 12 coming up in the next 2-3 weeks.
It's so fun.
And they're all insanely hyped up.
I guess when you set no expectations, everything is a positive, right? I guess that's the only way you can look at it. Yeah.
And I think once we finish with that wave of these next few projects, the meta is going to shift again.
I'm tired of it, but
yeah, for sure. King of the Streets is the first big one to follow Trip and Ape Tribe. So I think just from that alone, these are probably pretty worthwhile to at least look at and see if there's a play there. Yeah, I mean, there's not even much to say outside of that. It's just
Cool.
another super hyped up mint that should do pretty well. Yeah, I'll be watching for plays there for sure.
Gotcha. Well, cool. All right. So next up, we're doing our section called winners and losers. Basically, we take a look at the market holistically and decide, who were the winners of the past week and who were the losers. And I'll start with my winner of the week, and that would be the Moonbird Nesters. So anyone that had their Moonbird nested as of, I believe, Saturday was airdropped one of the oddities, which is a new project under the Proof Collective, who are the same guys from Moonbirds. And it's the first airdrop that the Moonbirds are getting. All you had to do was just be nested. The team had stated numerous times on Twitter and in any spaces or interviews that you listened to that all the benefits would come to nested birds. Yet there were still people complaining on Twitter about not receiving the airdrop who were not nested. I guess they just missed the boat. And those would also be my losers of the week. Anyone that wasn't nested, for me, Moonbirds and nesting is like the easiest bet long term that I could possibly make. So for me, like super stoked that I got my oddity, was looking, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, but looking at that project much more closely, the oddities as they trade now. But those are my winners and losers. So who are yours?
Well, it goes without saying, biggest winners in Solana this week are people with the Triple H Tribe whitelist.
Wow. So yourself again. So both of us chose the winners who we are both the winners. So
we're not biased, but you can't deny facts.
Good thing we disclosed what we have at the top of the show.
Yeah.
Okay. So Triple H whitelisters.
For sure. In terms of profit, I mean, you're getting the max amount you can get if you sell at the right time. Obviously impossible to time the top there, but I mean, no one that is holding this project is making more than someone who minted it on paper, at least. Especially if you mint rank 4 like I plan to.
Speak it into existence. Keep saying it. Rank 4 incoming. Cool.
Dude, I'm gonna lose my mind if I actually mint rank 4.
If you mint under rank 200, I think that's a huge deal.
Oh yeah, I think even higher than that. I mean, people are gonna absolutely be buying rares.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I would argue 200 is a mid rare, and I would argue also that mid rares are some of the most difficult NFTs to sell long term. But you're not holding this long term, so at least that's
honestly,
at the moment.
Depending how it looks, I might not even have this thing for 2 hours.
Wow.
But we'll see.
Bearish or bullish?
It's so hard to. Bullish on the drop day or mint day, bearish on a week later.
You'll hype it up in the Discord while you list your thing. You'll hype it up in the Trippin' Apes Discord while you list your NFT. That's the classic.
Their chat is moving nonstop. I don't even think I could.
All right. Jeez, I hate those Discords. God. Okay, and then
Fiverr Central on there.
Jeez. Yeah. Shout out to Boki. Anyway, so losers of the week. Anybody you got on your radar?
Yeah. So we had Trippy Kids mint out yesterday. And this almost speaks to why I'm a bit worried about the apes. This was a super hype project, and this is almost someone made an interesting point to me in our Soul chat the other day that OK Bears going as hard as they did. And I'm curious to know your take on this too. It almost sets like an unrealistic expectation for everything that follows, at least for now. Maybe not in the longer term of the space, but at least for right now, any hyped up mint lately has just opened up too high and only dumped from there. And people are still trying to basically force the play.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's just a product of more buyers and more investors coming over from the Ethereum side who are used to those immediate like 2 to 3x off of a mint. That would be my only guess. But yeah, it is certainly interesting. I haven't touched any new projects since the Bears. But the apes might be a play for me. But we'll see. Yeah, I think it's a product of more investors coming over and expecting things that are typically uncharacteristic of the Solana space.
Yeah, so I guess to sum it up, the loser is that Trippy Kids top buyer. People trying to force a play. It was not even a great project, but it was just super hyped up. People bought as soon as it hit the ground running and got kind of wrecked. Buying at 8, whereas it's now sitting at like 3.
RIP top buyers in any space, but especially this one. Yeah, it hurts. It hurts looking at that. Maybe I was an OK Bears top buyer. We'll talk about that later, I guess. In another episode, we'll see. I guess maybe that'll age well. Maybe it'll age poorly. Okay. So we've covered our winners and losers. So now we're going to be moving on to our personal weekly rundowns and any plays that we've made or any plays that we're watching. And I'll go first because I mentioned it at the top of the show in terms of disclosing what we own. So I bought an Other Deed this week. And for those that have been following, Other Deeds have been fluctuating. I think the low was like 2.5, I want to say was the low. And the high, like pre-reveal, I think was like 7 ETH or something, or maybe 9 ETH. I think I remember Vince selling his like post-mint, same like within minutes at 9 ETH, which is crazy. So I bought one with an artifact on it. And artifacts are a pretty interesting component to the other side. The Bored Ape Yacht Club kind of new metaverse that they've been building. And I'm pretty bullish on Other Deeds in general because I think no one really knows what they do yet. And until we have a clear idea of what they are, I can't fade them. But also, the artifacts are more limited than Codas in terms of, just general supply. They're much rarer. The most common artifact I read has less than 1,000 supply. And that's out of 100,000 land deeds and soon to be 200,000 land deeds, assuming that no new artifacts are added in this next wave of plots that are put out there. Artifacts also can't be crafted. They might be supplied more, but on the obelisk page, I've done my research on this, so I'm going to be quoting some of this stuff. But on the page, it reads treasures and tools. If you find an artifact, know that it may hold secrets to this world as it expands. And then it also said scattered throughout the lands of the other side are rare objects, some of which cannot be crafted by any other means. So I just think that these things are going to become way more valuable. And with them only sitting, roughly above the floor by about an ETH, to me, that's just such a value buy that I just had to buy one. And I spent like 4.2 ETH on it. So I obviously paid a little bit higher than the current floor. I think the current floor at the time of recording is like 4 ETH. But I got one with a relic card, which is a 0.59% rarity. And, no one really knows what these artifacts do, but I think that's kind of the fun of it. And that's kind of where this investment could go really well. So I'm excited for that one. That was a play I made. If I can find another rare artifact, I will buy it just because I really want to have a couple of these things. If it's possible that you can take your artifact off of the land and sell it individually, I think that makes things super interesting too. But I'm stoked for these. Any thoughts on the other side and artifacts? What did you think of this play?
Yeah, I mean, by default, I trust you with most of the ETH plays that you make, way more than me. But yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong betting against Yuga Labs. I mean,
yeah.
How could you not?
I just think it's so. Yeah, I mean, it feels like such a no-brainer to me. Like, this is a new asset, right? Like, we have the Codas already. There's 10,000 of those, but we've never seen an item trade within Yuga Labs. Like, they've never really created one either. So to me, this is like a brand new kind of asset within their ecosystem that to me feels super undervalued when you look at the floor. And it's only an ETH above like normal land with nothing on it. And then you look at Codas and they're worth 23, 24 ETH. It seems like too big of a discrepancy where there's just too much more room for them to grow.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. So that was a play that I made, and I am watching to see if I can get some other cool deeds. I'm looking for some of the rarer ones. There are ones that have actual names, like artifacts that have names, which are kind of interesting. Need to do a little bit more digging on those. But yeah, that was my play. The other play I had was obviously the Moonbird oddities that I picked up. Looking at those, would be a buyer for those again under 3 ETH. If we get there, I probably will buy because I think they'd just be undervalued. Being, I think the floor on Moonbirds is 25 ETH. So if they're under 3 ETH, like that's literally trading at an eighth, almost even less than the price of a Moonbird, and the collection supply is exactly the same. And no one even knows what they do until they reveal in July. So for me, this feels like an easy bet too. So looking at those. And the last one I had was I bought an Art of Seasons from Renga and Dirty Robot Studios. Art of Seasons is an adaptive NFT, so it actually changes and updates with the seasons, as you might have guessed. But it is a new project, newish project. I think it's only been around for a few months. But Renga Factory and Dirty Robot are doing this new project that's called Renga, just like their company. And from what I've seen in the previews, it looks really sweet. It looks like an avatar project. It's very artistic. I would encourage anyone that's not familiar to go check it out. I actually bought one for the the GFNF 3 ETH challenge as well, because I'm excited about this. And buying an Art of Seasons and holding it will give you access to mint the new project. So that's all I'll say now, because I've been talking for a while. But I'm super excited about Art of Seasons and Renga. So Adam,
it's like the dynamic NFTs. Those are always cool to me.
Yeah, it's super cool. I want to see them innovated a little bit more. I feel like they can do a lot more with it, and I think the team can do it too. So excited for that project for sure.
Sure.
So those were my plays that I've been either watching or have made within the past week. Adam, any plays that are on your radar for Solana this week, or anything that you've made in the past 2 weeks, I'd say?
Yeah, so my actual play that I made, I'm going to save for the end here because that was followed by such a, how do I put it, such a eventful follow-up.
Making us sweat for the play, huh? All right.
Yeah, so we're gonna save that for the end, and I'll start with stuff I'm looking at or already am holding first. So to start, this is a project I actually called 2 months ago about, I think back in March, and that's the OG Atadians. They recently rocketed it up to like 22, 23 SOL. Still holding mine for mint. And I mean, just looking at what the project is, they're doing it completely different than everyone else. They're a utility first, art second project, but the utility is so interesting. They do like a Web3 credit check, essentially. And that factors into a trust score associated with your profile picture, which is kind of crazy to think about that they can do.
A social credit score, you would say.
Social credit score, yep.
Oh, man.
And it looks like what goes into that is there's a lot, but just to name a few, it's things like if you hold an NFT long term, that's going to work for you in favor of you. If you paper hand stuff, it works against you. And they even have like a lending lab, which is basically they'll loan you out Solana, and it's almost like a real life loan, where if you don't pay it back on time or something like that, your score will go down. And I mean, we could sit and talk about this project for 2-3 hours. So that's how much they have going on. They just released their new roadmap, and it really looks phenomenal. My one thing with this project is that their marketing is pretty bad. So anytime, and I'm going to frame this positively after taking a jab at them, but anytime these guys say anything, without fail, they run up, but then they get quiet and people sell for other opportunities or whatever, just taking profits.
Impatient crowd.
But I think if this team can get their marketing together, that they're just going to be a reckoning force in the space. They're one of the few that I think is going to really last long term.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, don't default on your Solana loans.
Yeah. No.
Jeez. Cool.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think that you can do that, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'd be putting anything up for collateral.
No, I don't have any intention of taking a loan myself, but you can do it.
Cool. There's utility for you right there.
Yeah, and then another one, I had spoken on it a bit earlier in the show. I'm looking at Cats on Crack pretty heavily to rotate into. I think, just as the OG community project, I'm going to call it, that stands on its own as a benefit of owning it. The opportunity you get within that community, I think, is really solid in terms of like whitelist and alpha and whatever that looks like to you. Sure. I'm not actually in there, so I don't know exactly what it looks like. But I know they have stuff like their mutations coming up and staking. It's honestly, at its core, it's not a very in-depth project, right? But I think being the first of its kind really speaks to it. And I think that the strength is there in the people who hold it. And that's just a project I've liked for a while. It's crazy because I faded them when they first minted.
There you go.
At under mint. And I could have been buying them this whole time, but better late than never.
Well, I faded him too because I thought the name looked kind of ridiculous. CETS. I thought that was ridiculous. So, but if Solana is going to be a serious contender in the NFT space, I think it's good to look at potential blue chip contenders. And I don't even know if it's fair to call them this, but if that is the case, then you got to pay attention to stuff like this, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I don't want to go too far into detail of this list, but in our server, I actually put up that list. I think we were talking about earlier of just stuff to look out for while everyone is liquidating, and that could be your OK Bears, your Soul Gods / Bridged. Another really good one to get into is the Tail Robotics ecosystem.
Yep.
And that's Soulport Tom. He's pretty much one of the leading. He is an influencer, but he's not an influencer in the sense of, hey, let's show this project. He's got his own tech that he really builds out for the space, and it's really good.
Interesting.
So it's like a different category of influencer, I'd say.
Yeah, productive influencer rather than just a commentator.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So getting into his ecosystem, I think would be really good. Blocksmith Labs, if it happens to drop down, I think is a really good one. Famous Fox is a stellar project to get into. I know GFNF members love that.
We are all over that project. So if anyone is interested and isn't in GFNF, join GFNF. We are bullish on that project. Our collaborators are insanely bullish on that project. We're always calling buys and sells on that thing. So check us out if you like Famous Fox Federation.
Yeah, and then I'm also looking at Tombstone. I just love that project, and I know they're cooking something up right now.
For sure.
They're pretty low right now. Pick one up.
Yeah.
But Solstead is another great one that's actually under the Tail umbrella, which is cool.
Oh, nice.
And then,
I didn't know that.
of course, Atadians.
Yep.
And I'm sure there's a million more out there that could be good buys right now as everyone's liquidating.
Yeah.
But that's at least what's on my list. And another one that's on my list is buying Dust, which is the DGods token.
Ooh.
We've got the upcoming Gen 2 of DGods Duppies, and I think that's going to be a really good one. And that mints completely in Dust. It's not a small amount either. It's 375 Dust per mint.
And what's Dust currently trading at?
I didn't check it today, but last I looked, it was $3.50, give or take.
$3.50.
Yep, $3.50.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Interesting. Yeah, that's similar to the ape coin play for the other side mint. We saw that run to 28. I want to say was the high, $28, not cents, and it's since come back down to like $8. So if you can be a seller of the coin at the top, you can make some seriously good money. So
yeah, and I know for Dust in particular, there's 13,333 supply on that mint. If you add up the numbers, that mint alone is taking out probably right now. Sure, there will be more Dust made down the line through DGods, but it's going to take like 80% of Dust out of circulation.
What does that mean out of circulation? It just goes back to the DGods guys if they locked it away or something, or what happens to that?
Yeah, I believe they lock it up. I don't know the specifics.
Okay.
But it won't be available to anyone but the team.
Interesting.
So that's going to obviously put a supply shock on Dust. And that's not the only thing you can do with it. I mean, Dust is crucial to their ecosystem, whether that's trading it itself. You can buy raffle entries with it. I think they do their merch with Dust. And probably even more. He's teasing stuff that we don't even know.
Okay.
So
interesting.
I think Dust is going to be a hot commodity here in a few weeks.
Yeah. Sounds
and
good
I think
to me.
now is probably the time to buy it.
How do you buy it?
There's a couple different just swap websites. I use Jupiter. I think Radium is another good one.
Okay.
But yeah, super easy actually. You just connect your wallet and you swap whatever token.
This is swapping Solana to Dust, right?
Yeah, I think you can even swap other tokens from other projects too, which is kind of cool. I did that the other day for a little bit of Dust.
Interesting. But because I know there would have to be like some kind of bridge from ETH to Dust to make ETH to Sol and then to Dust. So yeah, you guys can do your Googles on that and figure out how to do it if you're trying to do ETH. But probably just better to buy Sol and then just swap it over is what I would say.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, cool.
But,
anything else?
those are my potentials. Now let's talk about my actual play that I made last week and the madness that ensued after it. So if you're listening to this, you're obviously not a noob to NFTs. Most likely, I shouldn't say obviously.
Well, we welcome all noobs too. So if you are, you found the right place, because we'll hopefully help onboard you a bit.
You're likely aware of what happened last week with the Reptilian Renegade and the Balloonsville Ruggers return.
Yeah.
But if you were lucky, and we called this perfectly, we bought in right around 4, and they ran to, I think, the high of like 48 or something crazy like that. They 100% sold way too early, but we had a ton of members make money on that play. I think I exited it like a 2 or 3x or so. So even at that, it was still really good profit. And then 3 days or so after the project started going crazy, the Balloonsville Rugger returned and announced that he basically took the launchpad that they minted on, Hydra Launchpad. And it's funny because these guys had this almost affiliation with them, and any project they launched, that it was always just a higher tier project, and anything that they put out was just really solid and always did well. And that's a whole rabbit hole we can go down in conversation. But for podcast's sake, this guy flipped their PR upside down and just made them look horrible.
Yeah.
Completely rugged the project, made a fool of Hydra. I mean, it was pure entertainment. Unfortunately, a bunch of people got burned pretty badly. Luckily, here at GFNF, not too many people did. And if you did, and you're listening to this, I'm so sorry that happened to you. I hope everyone got out early before it happened, because if you did, you made some serious money. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy. That guy even made his own server. He's got like a cult following now, which is kind of a problem. But
yeah, not a great showing for the Solana space, and I think that kind of zapped consumer confidence and investor confidence in a lot of projects when that happened. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it felt like everything kind of took a slow down after that.
Yeah, we were on track for Solana Summer, and I feel like with that we took 2 steps backwards for sure.
Yeah, so not great, but not completely unrecoverable.
No, I think and I hope that the market-wide stimulus of Trippin' Ape profits kind of puts us back on track, but we'll see. He, as crazy as it sounds, and as crazy as that he has a cult following now, honestly, the info that he was putting out there, it made a little bit too much sense. And, you can only take so much of what someone who just rugged people for millions says so seriously, but he came with receipts.
Damn.
Came with receipts.
Don't make me bring up the receipts.
He came with receipts, and it was not really a great look for anyone involved. Hydra as a company, just not looking great right now. Trippin' H, funny enough, was actually supposed to mint on there and had to switch. Thank God it did. I was a bit worried they wouldn't, and it would negatively affect any profits from whitelist minters that they could have made. But no worries there. They swapped to Magic Eden. But yeah, I mean, Lizards was the big play last week. And over at GFNF, if you guys join, you would have known. And you would have timed it right with us. We bought it with our, we've got a 30 SOL challenge that we as a community run. And that was our first buy. And couldn't have gone better up until it didn't, pretty much.
Don't sleep on the SOL challenge. Looking forward to the next play. Cool. Well, I think that just about concludes this week's episode of NFT Tactics. We hope everyone found this informative and useful. We'll be back next week to talk about everything that's been happening between right now and next Monday and Tuesday. So let's plug ourselves, I guess. And well, first and foremost, let's plug GFNF. If you guys are interested in joining the group, please visit gfnf.io to join our waitlist. We select folks randomly off of that list periodically, and that's what we found to be the most fair method of folks joining the group. Feel free to follow us at GFNF with 2 underscores following GFNF at Twitter. My personal Twitter is at 1097AD. And Adam, what is yours?
You can find me at Slumped1641, and Slumped has no E in it. Oh,
Yeah, there you go.
I tried to be trendy.
Slump without the E. Yeah,
Slumped
so
without the E.
I don't think either of us really tweet that often, but we do sometimes share our latest NFT pickups and plays. But the podcast and the daily show are probably the two best ways to find out what's going on with us. If you need us, feel free to send us a message on Discord. And yeah, see you next week or see you in GFNF real soon. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us.
Thanks for listening, and we will see you for episode 2.